The Drum Candy podcast is brought to you by Drum Factory Direct.
Hey, what's up, everyone? Welcome into episode 44 of the Drum Candy podcast. This is your host, Mike Dawson, coming to you from Drum Factory Direct in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. This week, I'm sitting down with Mitch Zlotnik of Audimute. Mitch and I worked together to redo this room. If you're watching the video version, you're seeing a new, finally cohesive background to my video. So I had Mitch and his team redesign this space to make it tighter sounding, more balanced, more controlled, so I could teach and practice and do a little bit of recording and make the podcast in here. So this episode, I'm just asking Mitch all the questions about soundproofing and sound treatment and diffusion, and we go into some physics. I'm way out of my league. It's a real fun hang. So if you have any questions about how to treat a room, hopefully this episode will get you there. And then if you want to follow up, definitely reach out to Mitch at Audimute on Instagram. He'll get back to you. All right, let's get to it with Mitch from Audimute.
Take us there.
All right, man. How's the room look on camera to you?
It's a little washed, but it looks fantastic.
Yeah, that's just the Logitech.
The lighting and such, but but that vibe you were able to pull last night was incredible. So, it's neat. And as you change the light, you're going to get different things. Like if you go to a 2700 versus a 3000 versus like a 3500, you're going to get different qualities come out. The brighter whites, this kind of thing, and the hotter whites, if you will, are going to bring out like more your hardware. And then you're going to, as you go that dark stuff like you did, it almost gave like a vignette kind of effect.
Yeah.
I mean, dude,
yeah.
it's.
I mean, my favorite artist is Van Gogh, and I feel like I'm living in a Van Gogh.
Dude, but it's cool. It's interesting, but it doesn't take away. It's like, it piques your interest. Like, wow, that's really unique. What is that? But it's not like so busy. And that's what's unique about your design. I think what they were going for initially was almost like a thing where you'd have like a centerpiece and then these things on the side. And what they really did a nice job in the graphics team of was just kind of blending the whole thing together as one to make it more contiguous, but definitely sectioned into two different areas. With the multi-depth versus the flatter area with the felt. It just, dude, it looks great. Really looks great. I'm so, and I couldn't be happier because if you're not happy, I'm not happy. So
this sucks. Come get this crap out of my house.
I'll be right over, bitch. I'm coming. Go, can you use a B word? So no, I'm coming. So I'm coming to swap that out, because you're 2 hours away. You should come up here. Come pick up your own shit, man. Oh, there's an F-bomb. Sorry.
Don't drop an F and work.
Yeah, no S's. Ooh. So I think if you're just come get your own stuff and it's great. You can actually pick out what you want. It's kind of cool. So like we got fun. Right. Like this is all R&D behind me. Well, we'll show you. Just lead the way, bro.
Yeah. What do you? So the R&D, what does that mean? So what is the stage of you for research and developing new product? Like, how's it work?
It works. Sometimes it works accidentally. Sometimes it works. If someone says, "Hey, I need this," and then I have to figure out how to make it, and then we have to make sure it's going to work for what I want to do with it. So you take something like this thing here, which is funny because someone saw it and goes, "Oh yeah, I want that," and I went, "How did I make that again?" And it was like. So that is a combination of what became what's called a Dax brick, because that was the first time I did like that surface texture in a brick form for Dax Nielsen, combined with a white heavy coat. What's the different side of the product for what we typically would use for flat strata. It's hard to explain, but it's a different surface. It's actually using a surface texture. And I was trying to imitate a specific wall that a client had. And it came out even cooler than her wall. But that one wasn't appropriate for what she was doing. I needed to make it a little different to make it look like mortar pieces and such. So I changed some things and then it worked. But it's still like a cool design if I can just figure out what I did.
Is that like individial pieces or is it one big plank kind of?
No, it's individual pieces. I knew how this thing worked. I could zoom in. But it's a... here.
So each of those different things is a separate piece you had to nail in.
It's put together essentially, but not nail because I didn't build that onto the wall. I actually put it on a backer, so that can be relocated. That just hung like a picture. Same with that strata piece over there, and same with this guy over here.
What's that black one?
So the black one is Strata Cityscape. Carter McLean has that. Sammy Marandino. Who else has Cityscape? A lot of applications, actually. They're really fun. Dweezil Zappa has a ton of that. And he did black and white in a vocal booth, and it looks like Alice in Wonderland meets rock and roll. It's awesome.
Beetlejuice.
Beetlejuice. Yes. Yeah. But it's really cool. And then he did some really cool triangles and things. The Hikari Studio, worth checking out. If you haven't seen it, it's neat. But that's a cool design. And then this one over here, I was testing, okay, what if I get gaps? What are we going to do? And can the backer that's on the back of this, can that work with like if I have gaps and I coat the product, how do I keep the stuff from like from the coating not showing, or sorry, from the gaps not showing white, which is the color of the backer. So I have to coat the backer the same color as that, and then hope it would work and not, and that was actually a success. So that was giving me, I was kind of playing with the concept of, okay, can I build and not necessarily have the same size pieces? You know what I mean? Not with everything consistent on one side. Usually it's 1.5 inch on one side and the other can be any length. And I was like, well, what happens if I just change it all up?
Oh, I see. And
so I started messing with that and then saying, well, let me see what happens with the gaps first. That was the gap test. So they're not big gaps, but they're big enough that I could say, hey, does this work or not? So visually, it was really the testing here. It wasn't so much with the acoustical, which is still going to be a 1.5 inch, velocity absorber, like pretty much like all the other 1.5 inch product that we would sell. Mm-hmm. So it'll probably be like a 0.95 or 1 NRC. And it's just really a cool design. And this is all made from drops. This is all made from things that come out of certain parts of our process that I will not let anybody throw away. Yeah, we should want to get some really cool things on camera. We can go talk to some folks over here and you can see how excited they're going to be when I start wanting to save more parts and pieces.
Because so you just collect all the garbage? Is that what you do?
I wouldn't call it garbage because every single thing we have is useful. It's a matter of, is it part of a standard product? No, it has to be built, has to be made. And we have to put a process in place so that it can happen with efficiency and we can sell it affordably, because I want to be affordable. I don't want things I can make for one person, but I can take something like that, make something completely unique for a studio. And then I haven't really, I wouldn't say, it obviously costs something to build the product, but it was like a labor of love to design and make something cool and try something like that. And then put it right into application. And then you get to see, hey, are people drawn to this? Do people ask about it? Or it's kind of like ho-hum. So I kind of gauge in real time what people think about something as it's going in, while it's in, after, et cetera, and that kind of thing. Like I've already had 4 people ask about your design. In fact, right in the question, people say, how much is that? And it's like, well, wait a minute, let's not start with the thing. Let's start with what you're trying to accomplish. We have a proven process for how we do things. Problem, integration, solution, outcome. Very important. If someone says, well, how much does that cost? How big of a room? Is it going to do what you think it's going to do? Doesn't matter what it costs. If it's not going to work. Visually, I can quote it, but that doesn't mean anything because I obviously want the acoustical. So it's just getting all that together. Sometimes it's frustrating in a public forum when the solutions are very, very subjective. And our goal here is to make all of our processes the same, change the last 5% so that we can keep it within that efficiency so that we can be affordable and launch to the masses and do that in a very customized way without having to change our processes.
Mm-hmm. So 2 questions.
Yeah.
Does the Cityscape give you something different acoustically than the other 2 pieces that look more like strata variations?
Yes, as does the blue one. I don't know if you can see the blue one over here. That blue one, that guy over there.
Yep.
And that's made from, that's what we call textured strata. The textured strata has some different depths to it. This guy here, again, more similar to what would be the coefficient, the curve of our 1.5 panel. And then this guy over here has more area, as does the textured. So you get a little bit more mids absorption there than you would say the highs. All the highs are going to be pretty much taken out by almost everything we have. I shouldn't say completely removed, but they're going to be managed well because of how they perform for highs, which a lot of absorption products do, not just ours. It's just the way physics works. So, but typically when folks see this, they think of it as a quadratic diffuser, but that's the design, but it's not the acoustical effect of what we're doing. It's actually an absorber, and it's a really powerful absorber because it's thick and because it's got a lot of exposed area.
All right.
Cool.
Well, you're leading me down multiple avenues. I don't want to go there quite yet. What was the other question I had? I don't remember. Oh, is it like if someone said, I want Mike's design, is it like, no, we don't repeat designs? I mean, how does that work?
Me personally, I'd say no, get your own design. No, I wouldn't say that. I'd say I'd be glad to make you your own design. But I want that design. I mean, it's like, I don't want somebody to look like you. I think I would do something with that spirit of the, with multi-depth, this kind of thing. I would also take obviously first in consideration whether I'm trying to do acoustically, and then I could do something that in that same spirit, but not looking like you. Cause I don't think someone really wants to do you. They kind of do. They might want to. Maybe that can be kind of freaky sometimes. It's like, what do you call it? What was that movie with the? Oh, come on.
I don't know which one you're talking about. Face Off with Nicolas Cage.
Oh my God, Bridget Fonda's in it.
Oh, it's yes, that man's. Holy
Everybody's
cow,
watching
that's
this.
a 90s. That's a 90s like classic.
And she dresses up like her and everything. My wife would know. She would
single white female. Boom.
Thank you. Oh, killing me. So single white female kind of thing where, I want someone to have their own design, be in the spirit, but not like single white female Mike Scary.
Yeah.
So usually the situation calls for something a little different based on shape of the room, size, height of the ceiling, all the other parameters, amount of diffusion that's already in the space. That kind of thing. So
how many rooms are set up to be a corner like mine? Is that typical or is it not normally?
Actually, yours is kind of unique in that way. It's kind of cool, but a lot of folks will have some kind of because they'll want to have the acoustical treatment in place, but they'll want to have like a main shot. They'll want to, they'll actually know in advance what type of what do you call it, camera angles and things like this they want to have in place. So it's easy to say, okay, this will be your main shot here. Then we'll do a side shot this way. I'm gonna, if they're teaching especially, then they'll kind of already have a lot of those things in place. So in the in your particular studio, it's really unique because we went right to the corner. We knew we were going to have something to the left, but we didn't know about the right and the amount of space between the wall and the window kind of a thing, which is still kind of a cool corner because it has the combination of what's on the other side of the room that nobody has seen yet. Right. Cool. Yeah. Ooh, it's like, that's awesome. But what's on the other side, a whole different world. And so a lot of times you can do that with a feature wall and then things on the left and right. The other big benefit of having a design like that, I guess not in the corner that way, where if somebody truly wants a different kind of shot, sometimes they have different shows, or sometimes they're doing different types of niches that they're serving and they want to change it. So there's that. And then also sometimes folks don't have the budgetary means with which to say, do, a designed full room, but they can design one or two walls. And so that's where it really helps to have like I said, a couple options if you can, or just, things you have to think about how people are going to use the space. Part of it's just the integration. Anyway,
let's get into some sound theory here. Because I think the biggest issue, drums, obviously, we don't talk about the room enough and how challenging that can be. This room I had never played drums in here when there was nothing in it. And it was downright shocking how reverberant it was. Like there's no way I would have been able to keep drums in this room. So let's talk about soundproofing versus sound treatment. Okay.
So typically, again, we're starting with the problem integration solution outcome type path of solving sound problems. The problem there is, okay, what are we trying to solve for? And that would be, all right, well, how much isolation do you require? And trying to really understand what that means from a very practical and pragmatic approach. This is acceptable. If I were half as loud, my wife wouldn't kill me. You can keep your drums, honey, as long as it's half as loud. Or I have a neighbor outside my window, was the case with Jake Summers, very close to his window, where part of the success of that solution, regardless of the look and what had happened inside that room, was to make sure that we created enough barrier. So that was more of a soundproofing or isolation type strategy in that particular instance. with, but we also can couple that with what's happening on the treatment side. And based upon what we're able to remove in the space or adjust in the space will affect how much can actually leave through the deficiencies in the boundary. And that would be, say, in most cases, like Jake's case, the window. In the case of the house, where a lot of people miss, are things like, obviously cracks in doors, sound that's going to go through the structure itself and resonate in other areas as structural noise. And then you have the HVAC system, which is direct air connectivity. Sometimes you can even see it. At my old house, I had a vent, and it was a return shared between my room, the bedroom, the master, and my kids' room. That was just bad news altogether. There was no reason to have that. I'm proud that was a problem. But it was, but that's like it was good to recognize that as these are the things that folks need to look at. I think even taking a picture of it to show how, because I like to teach my team and show them things I bump into in the field to show why that can be a problem in working with someone's home, whether it's recording to try to isolate for that or just your daily activities. So difference between the two, I think when people speak to soundproofing, they're talking about isolation. How much isolation do you require? And then how much treatment in the space do you require? So it's weird because you're going to work with both to get to the solution. And that's the key. What is the balance between the two? And as you say, let's say I really want to be isolated. I'm going to do a double wall construction. I'm going to have double doors, or I'm going to put in a resilient channel. These are all words that people may have read about, or they're understanding. And once you have a condition set up where you have enough mass, the trick is then don't put holes in it with like canned lighting. That's a big mistake people make. But also once you've done all that to account for the mass of things that would leave, you also have to deal with now what you've kept in the room that no longer can leave. And so managing that by changing angles on walls, which is a very expensive proposition for a lot of folks. And also comes down to the reality of, okay, how much isolation do you require? And then what kind of treatment are we going to need or should we need based upon what we're, what we can change based upon budgetary constraints. Often that's where it's going to stop, especially where somebody's in a temporary situation or perceive a move in the near future.
Yeah, I think when we first started talking, you saw the picture of the window. You're like, "Whoa, what are you going to do with that?" And for me, it was like it doesn't matter because it kind of shoots down into like a courtyard where there's nobody there. Yeah, so I think that would have cost a lot more, right? If we would have had to deal with that window. It's a big.
No, because you know what? Because the neighbors aren't right there. If you had somebody, what would we do to add mass? Obviously, my first choice in that scenario is, okay, hey, can we get an appropriately rated window for what we know is going to be going out? And unfortunately, even the windows that you would find, say, in hotels by airports and things like this that are very high-end windows, you're still going to have things coming through. The question is can we weaken the energy enough so that it's, if I have to worry about 100 feet, 200 feet, a half mile, depends on who's playing, right?
Right.
But in some cases, like Jake's, I'm talking, you could jump from his window to the neighbor's bedroom window. And that's really, really, that was tricky, but we basically added a mass layer. We put in a sheet of our 6.4 Peacemaker, and then I just put panels. And I knew once I did that, plus everything else that was planned for the space, I wouldn't have an issue. And outside, it was no louder than the birds chirping. The birds outside were louder than his playing at full force.
Wow. Wait, so did that negate his window entirely?
He would not be able to use the window in an easy way. We could have made something that would be removable, but why does that not work? Because a solution that's going to have mass is going to be heavy and hard to move. And that's just a pain in the ass because you have other things in the space and you may bring it up and down. He's got other windows. So it wasn't in your situation, but in your case, it's not necessarily expensive proposition. Sometimes just layer of mass loaded vinyl, which is clear. Make sure you get the thermal controlled, or there's a UV rated version of mass loaded vinyl that allows for, better longevity. The product doesn't yellow on you. Unless you like yellow in your room. Go for that. Yeah, that look, that cyan look. And then you get, or you're doing something like that. But I think and then panels on top or something, just to help. Again, it's a reflective surface, so we want to treat that as a percentage. In your space, it's a lot. In other spaces, it's not as bad. But you're working with those kind of things. That's why it's good to get a kind of a pro who's been down the street and says, "Hey, let's start with this. If you have a solution that costs $600 or $500 or could cost that much with labor or whatever, are you comfortable with that?" And if the answer is yes, now you have a project. So you're kind of qualifying yourself based upon what a perceived cost might be. Mm-hmm. If you're renting, you got to spread that over the cost of your lease, these kinds of things. So there's a lot of common sense that goes into it that you have to think about in advance before you even start figuring out what things you're going to employ. Are you comfortable with something that could cost between here and here? If the answer is yes, then you're kind of qualified for a solution for your window.
All right, what about floors and ceilings? I know you can see the stuff on the walls, pretty obvious.
Yeah.
But the importance of treating the floor in the ceiling.
So floors and ceilings, real tricky actually, because as it's part of your structure. We don't want the walls to vibrate if we can help it. We want to minimize that. So in the build, typically you'll have something between the studs and the room itself. Sometimes that'll be an air gap if you can afford to build that way, but it depends. I can tell you that those are really important surfaces because they're connected to the structure, but sometimes you have living spaces where there's other people who are closer to you than would be, say, your sidewalls. Your walls. So someone above you, if you're in the basement, you're above the kitchen, or you're above where your wife's watching TV, or where the kids are playing or something, or sometimes it's switched. But again, it's going to be a matter of mass. And if it's isolation from, and you've got footfall heard in your recordings and this sort of thing, now you've got a much bigger issue, because that's going to, horses are kind of already the barn if the thing's already built, right? Mm-hmm. So now things like carpet go a long way. Plush carpet can help with some footfall. And sometimes the best solution is like, look, when I'm recording, I'm going to not let anybody in this room. I'm going to put up, tape off the room or tell people you're going to be in there, because that's the best solution, is to not need one. Mm-hmm. Don't play during Grey's Anatomy, and your wife's going to still love you. Or This Is Us, or whatever the show.
Does that still come on?
Yeah. Still, you're still catching this season. So I've been trained. I'm trained. Things I can do with noise in the house, when, and that's one of the times it's a not. And that's why I can be married for 27 years, So you and Sarah, man, you got to kind of you got to plan these things out, because the best solution is to not need one. If I can practice and do my thing when she's not going to be bothered, then I don't need to have a solution. The only solution I would need is one, say, to create the appropriate environment if I were going to record. And why anyone would want to hear me other than me, like I said, that ain't an issue. So,
the one thing I thought was going to be super problematic was the vent in my ceiling, because that connects to the whole house. It goes straight to the master bathroom. So it's not a major problem, but if my wife gets up at night, she can go to the bathroom, she can hear me playing. So the simple solution was just putting this magnetic vinyl cover.
Yeah, did you get one? Did you try it?
I did. I had no idea that was a thing.
Instantaneous, yeah. So again, we're kind of in the know and the hip. Now, we don't sell them, make them, if you will, but they're on Amazon and they're cheap. Would you get a 3-pack for $10 or something?
It was I think it was $15 for 3 of them. Yeah.
For 3. Yeah. Big deal. And they've got right something. Off. Yeah. And so and you can, so if it's, obviously when you need the airflow, you take it down. But if it's like, hey, I'm just going to do something for an hour at night, you have to remember to take it on and off. But again, it's not a big deal for what would the cost of, say, insulated ductwork and replacement of all that, rerouting and things like this, or setting up a secondary, path to your room and have it separate from the rest of the house. No, $15, done, non-issue. And frankly, I don't want to have to drag someone through that kind of condition. The worst thing I can do is to give advice where someone has to do the heavy stuff. And it's terrible. We get calls from folks that are in apartments, and I'm doing this, and I'm either bothering these people here, or these people are doing that and they're bothering me here. And it's in a temporary situation for everyone. So nobody's going to benefit from the build out except the owner of the building. And sometimes they'll actually realize, hey, you know what? I didn't realize how big of a problem this is. Now, what people are doing with their free time and who could possibly move in with podcasts, interests, and such, or gaming or movies. And so they may actually contribute or even fix the issue by increasing the mass layer and building out a wall and doing things like that. So, of course, it's a whole other strategy in terms of where to go, how to look for places. But I can tell you that, it's nice when I hear, because it's rare, when the landlord will participate and help separate a space. It's also good to ask these things just before your lease. So it's almost like, I'm thinking of moving. You got a couple months left. I'm about to give you notice, but you know what? I think I could stay if you could swing this. And now you've got a little bit of if you do this for me, I'm going to give you at least a year. And now they're like, hey, I don't have to worry about finding someone. I'm not going to skip 2 months of rent or whatever, and for a little bit of build out, it's a good time to kind of put your toe in the water. I got that from Luke on our team the other day. I was talking about that. I said, that is a great idea, because that's really the right time to ask when there's something in it for the landlord.
Not just drumming here, it's real estate tips.
Hey man, you know what? Because when we move, we're loud, and to have your passion with you and not be married to electronic drums, and not that there's anything wrong with that, but it's a different feel. And I think it's really important to kind of take into consideration who's going to be around, who might complain, because if you can avoid those situations, again, the best solution is to not need one.
Dig that. Let's talk about absorption versus diffusion. I know these are terms that everyone talks about, but what does it really mean, and when do you use it? And
wow. Again, depends on the space in terms of the specific application, but the difference between the two is one is going to be more of let's say a scattering effect, where it's going to break up sound energy and scatter that and change the rate of return, sometimes cancel those waves by how they will be affected by a diffuser. The absorption element is one of a velocity absorber, for example, is going to, via friction, transfer the energy from what is a mechanical wave to an energy wave, and you don't hear those. So there is an elimination through friction in an absorption panel. Diffusion works similarly, only in the sense that when you weaken, when you diffuse the energy, when you cause it to have an inconsistent return, and you have different waves bumping into each other, if you will, these kinds of things, you're going to break up how that's returned into the space, and that's going to give you a similar weakened effect, because lesser pressure, is perceived as lower volume. So that's another way of canceling, scattering, and usually rooms will consist of both. When I go into a space, I will, you have some different depths on your wall, not that they're huge variations and such. We could go there, but again, it's such a small space. It's very hard to do a lot, but we took a lot of the diffusive elements in consideration for how we made the design in the opposite walls. And I also knew you had your desk there, and I also knew you had your computer there, and I know you had the window there. And you have the closet doors there. So looking at all those little nooks and crannies and the way that sound is going to respond on the other side of the room, that's in the design. You didn't know that, but that's the kind of stuff I look at. And your ceiling, scattering that a little bit. I didn't want to be super consistent with how we did the ceiling. I needed to make sure there were enough gaps in there, but I had to make sure I could take that first attack off the kit before it gets, thrown up and down in that space, and it increases, because so that's the big diff, if you will. Typically have solutions with both in some of the spaces. I'm not going to, if I were doing listening positions and I had a room that was specifically designed for something, I would focus toward one or the other, as the room needed it, to balance the room. But it just really depends on what I'm solving for and what the purpose of the space is.
You said something there that I never thought about, is you're turning the sound wave in via friction. What was it again? You're mechanical? You're turning it.
Yeah. So you think about the early days of physics, when you took physics in school, and they said, okay, you have one vibrating molecule hitting another vibrating molecule, and that's kind of how sound moves from through the air, right? It has to have a medium. So the whole concept of aliens with no one in space will hear your scream, and the answer is absolutely they won't, because you can't scream if they can't hear it, and that's because there's nothing to connect you with the other person, because in a vacuum there's nothing else there. Sound requires a medium. Water is kind of cool. It transfers sound 25% faster than the air. That's why when someone clicks on the side of the pool, you hear it so fast your brain can't even discern between the time lapse between your right ear and your left ear. It sounds like it's everywhere.
Yeah.
Because it's hitting you closer to what our brain is not used to hearing something that fast. And so you can't perceive where it is. It's just kind of interesting. Anyway, going back to your original thought, which was help me out here.
The absorption turns it
right.
via
so
friction.
The mechanical
what was
wave,
the process again?
The mechanical wave. So the one vibration for the next molecule, et cetera, and that's going to transfer that way and create a wave. You have a molecule that moves this way, and this one that moves in and out, and compression, refraction. It's geeky. It's worth looking up. It's fun if you want some new words. But in short, they move from one molecule to the other. When it gets to your material, for example, that material through friction, will basically turn the wave as it hits it. Much like I almost compare it to water and the lap lanes, where the waves are essentially canceled. They got this big. That's not a good example. It's a good example, but it's hard to explain. You will basically turn your mechanical wave into a heat wave through friction. So the air moving in and out of the panel is causing the panel to move and vibrate, and that energy, as that moves, because it's not part of the same continuation of molecules of the air, it's stable, but it will the energy transfer basically turns into heat through friction.
Okay, that was going to bring up my next question. Could you play loud enough to start a fire?
Interesting. Dude, you win the most interesting question here. Yes,
if I had like a jet engine in here and I cranked it up, would these panels just ignite?
I would say no. It would have to be pretty loud, but it's the same concept. I mean, technically speaking, you could use sound waves, right, to move. I mean, we actually cut our material with sound waves.
Oh, no kidding.
That's cool. We use ultrasonic cutting. And all that is a vibration that moves so fast, and there's such friction, it creates heat, and it actually separates material. It's fantastic. It's really cool. And it's clean. And it doesn't have smoke. And it's this kind of stuff where, if you're cutting fabrics and such, which we do. So it's really neat to have that kind of technology. So the answer to that is yes, but I don't think a human could do that.
Right.
Considering our ultrasonic cutters vibrate anywhere from 30,000 to 60,000 cycles per second. So it's like holy cow. I mean, it's very, 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 very fast. 30,000, 60,000, I think a minute. It's gotta be a minute.
Kilohertz? Is that kilohertz? I don't know. I'm out of my league.
It's not getting overly geeky on it. It really is cool to look up, because there is technically it is transferred to heat energy, to thermal energy.
Fascinating.
So, yeah, that'd be funny. You could heat your home by beating your drums.
I mean, it gets hot in here. So what is your first steps for like assessing a room and what they might need?
What somebody wants it to sound like. So, what do you want it to sound like? Sometimes and this is important to assess, because then sometimes it's like, all right, in certain cases where someone has built a room in a room that already had a low ceiling, and say your room is like 6'8", and there's like no room. There's no room. And not only that, the pressure is much greater when you think about the overall volume that you bring down. So knowing kind of like what I'm going to have to do, it's kind of a test in the water of, putting a toe in the water of, what do you want it to sound like? And I hope a drier room is going to be appealing to you, considering the height of your ceiling. And I know that in the back of my head already, but I'm trying to have people articulate it so it's their idea, not mine. To have something that might end up being a little tighter. I think what's interesting is folks understanding what sound they like, and sometimes they don't know. You can back off the acoustics in your space by adding reflective things. You could hang pictures. You can hang, things of plexi. You can put things back into the space to bring back some of the brightness if you want it for certain takes. I'm actually working on some things that will let me do both in a space, changeable things. So stay tuned. No pun. But but the first step really is finding out what people want and what they like. And I've always found that the biggest thing is that some people want the room to be the art. I want this room to sound a certain way so that I can get that effect. I want that natural live a live room, literally, to sound like you're sitting in front of a bar and sitting in a bar and you're listening to a trio, and I want it to sound like that. And we can, in that characteristic, that sound signature becomes kind of characteristic of that space. And in some cases, folks want that. In other cases, folks want a room that is, I take the room out of the equation. And I mean, I want to take the room out so that I want to record clean and easy, mix easy, grab the sounds that I need. And then I want to be able to process that afterwards. And that's what most of the folks I'm working with want, because of the nature of content building today.
Yeah, right. I mean, the big roomy drums, 70s style, early 70s drums, that doesn't really happen too much anymore.
It's hard. It's hard. There's a couple folks I'm working with now, Dave Weckel, who really likes that he wants the room to be the sound. He wants, he knows what he wants. He's got an ear that's so trained. He's got a target, and that actually makes it easier for me in some ways, because he's kind of the one doing the design. So when someone can tell me, hey, here's what I want, and that's fantastic. Sometimes when folks say, hey, I don't care. Sometimes folks are, they're just different levels of engagement in that part of it. But I know if they're recording, if they're doing a lot of video and things like this, I already kind of know what they're into. I know what they need. And but the whole thing is talking about it. It's always about the fun of articulating that and sharing the excitement, and then creating a design that makes that happen. And we arrive at some really unique designs. I mean, we obviously I think you saw like 4 or 5 versions of your wall.
Yeah.
And then even the reality came in a little bit different with the felt, the color of the felt last minute. So it comes down to what a person wants.
Why is foam a 4-letter word?
Why is foam a 4-letter? Because it has 4 letters. Because it's a let's start with this. It's not earth friendly. It's produced with releasing of gases and things like this. So it's not as earth friendly as, say, our cellulose configuration. Fiberglass, same thing. Takes a lot of energy. The 4-letter word on foam also is because I think what drives me crazy is the expectation that when folks buy that, and I'm not saying things like Oralex, because I think they do have proper density for some of the applications they sell to, but it's when folks think they're getting the same thing, then they go on Amazon and they buy $1 a foot or $2 a foot type stuff, foam, and they put it on their wall, and they think they're going to get the same efficacy that you would, say, out of even Owens Corning 703 or my material, more earth friendly. But I'm just saying. So it's the difference is huge, and it's almost a waste because it's not doing anything for what they perceive it's doing. If someone specified it and said, hey, an acoustician or somebody with a lot of experience says, hey, I want you to do this. And that's because they knew how that performed, fine. But that's not what's happening. People think they're getting something that they're not really getting. And when, I think a great example would be Vlad. I don't know if you know Vlad Guigny. He had foam all over the place. I said, dude, you're not going to believe the change. It was night and day. And listen to his sound now. Oh, boy. I mean, it's a combination. One, great player with good mics, with good equipment, a good ear. And man, the room is just gone. And it's like, I was listening to someone yesterday, I can't remember who it was playing outside. And isn't that a great scenario? There's no return. You don't have any walls. Non-issue. You have the floor. And that's, I'm just saying, isn't that the condition we want? But some people, they find that to be boring when you're playing so dry. Yes, it's quite frustrating to hear every single thing you're doing. You want to clean up your left hand? You want to clean up your weak hand? You want your brush work to get cleaned up? Here you go. Sorry to deliver the bad news.
Yeah. Also, it's going to show deficiencies in your tuning. These drums sounded so different.
Yes.
I mean, it was like, whoa, I hadn't really paid attention to the rack tom in a couple of weeks, and I can tell.
The first thing that people say is, whoa, I got to tune these. I have to retune. It's like, yeah, but that's what you were hearing before. It's just you didn't hear it. I was telling you about Sammy Marandino's challenge. His initial challenge when he called was, I can't tell the difference in my different bass drums. I can't hear them. And then there's other issues associated with the chronological passage of time and us humans, but it's that happens with our ears, and I'm in the same boat. But I can tell you that, but his, getting the drum separated from the structure was a big deal. And then also having the room not, having the lows, not just, you can hear something down there because there wasn't this cacophony of mids and highs floating all over the damn place. Mm-hmm. And we did leave a lot in that space, but we just needed to control that enough where he could actually now hear different tones in the bass drums. It's cool.
Fascinating. Yeah. How in the world did you end up down this path?
No idea, man. I needed a job. No, I was like, I think it started with begging. No, it started with like solving my own problems. And when I wanted to play drums and I was living in temporary places, I needed to solve my own problems. And so what am I going to do? And so it started with solving my own problems. And then that led one to the other. And what was interesting is that time when I was trying to find materials that would work, and I wasn't interested in working with things that I didn't want to handle, or I couldn't handle. And I wasn't, big, I wasn't a builder or anything like this. It had to be simple and easy and preferably portable. And so the concept of a sheeted product was great, and getting the right density and getting it tested and having it, be able to have, good lab reports that would show the actual performance of the product in terms of also like having it, held off walls and such. Simple, easy, portable, and works, and cheap for drummers because I was not making any money at the time. And so it was really important to make something that would work for me. And once I had it, it was like, well, I was on eBay at the time, early, selling a bunch of different things. I think I told you that funny story that we'll avoid on this podcast, but finding things that had value there. And I realized that in order to stay there, to continue with the sales, you needed to be your own thing. You needed to source your own thing. And I realized, wait a minute here, 70% of manufacturers are making stuff for somebody else. It's outsourced manufacturing. So I don't have to make it. Okay. I do make things here in the United States. They're ours, but I think but I don't have to be, the manufacturer. I need to be the brand. And, case in point, I mean, it's so funny because I just saw this the other day. Do you know who makes BW3's sauce? BW3. They're renowned for their sauces, right? Guess what? It's made by Marzetti out of Columbus, Ohio.
There you go.
Shout out to a great salad dressing company who makes sauces, and they've got a great partnership. They have a division that makes commercial sauces and such. So that's a really cool thing. But something so renowned that you think that's like the Coke recipe. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. And there it's made by somebody else because that's just what they do. And they can focus on their operations in the restaurants and making great wings and sourcing great stuff and that kind of thing. So just to say I got into it through what was available. And at the time, things that people were getting rid of was available, and that's where I started with anti-vibration things, with neoprene and then just started doing a lot of sourcing and a lot of learning, a lot of studying and testing and finding and spending a lot of money in labs to make sure things are doing what I was hearing, but make sure it's actually happening because I have to prove it. Right. Took a long time, but we managed to get there and have something that was solving my problem. And then I managed to get there in something that would then be marketable. And Audimute was a made up name that I made up, and it just became a thing. It's funny. Now I work for Audimute. It's like, wow, that's the name I made up. So actually the company is the name after my jazz band. It's One Wish, which is named after my jazz band from way back when. So go figure that. But Audimute was born, and you just never know what you're going to end up doing. Yeah. Just stay passionate, stay true. Don't be afraid of the hard work. And you will, perseverance and honesty, mutual helpfulness, those kind of things go a long way.
Do you still play?
When I really retired my sticks is when I met Carter McLean. He'd hate to hear that. And then it was because it just went downhill from there. It was like, meet Carter, and just even in the testing. And I'd never been, I don't think, ever that close to a professional drummer, like a pro. And you look how relaxed he is. He can almost fall asleep on the throne. I'm like, man, it was just, I would never arrive there. And I realized, you know what? But if I can help this guy with something he really needs, I think I like being the athletic supporter than the athlete.
Athletic supporter? You mean trainer?
It sounds kind of funny, but yeah, the athletic trainer. No, but the supporter is like, it's a joke. But I'm just thinking, like, if I could be like, I'm not going to be the guy on the field. Ain't gonna happen. I'm gonna be the fair weathered fan, but actually more along the line of a partner in their sound. And what I found, and you're the same thing here, case in point, you and every guy that I've had the pleasure of working with, and there's been a bunch, they're good people. What I'm finding at the top here where I'm working, and I'm so blessed to do this, man, I'm telling you, I don't take it for granted for a second. They're good people. You have your share of douchebags, but it's like, but you know who to avoid, and you know who those guys are. Reputations precede people. But I can tell you that I've had a real pleasure of creating this, working within, I call it the Good Guys Club, or Good People's Club, I should say, because now I got some female drummers under my belt. But it's been great to meet fantastic people. You the same. I mean, look at all the cool things you do. Oh my God. I mean, dude, I say, Mike Dawson, you look like Dawson. I'm like, wow. And just, all I know is he's a great guy, and it's fun. And we hang out.
We're all nerds.
Yeah. You're kind of geeked out by what we do. You're more technical than others, which is cool. You're actually fun in that way because you got that development sense that I have, which is, how do we make that better? How can we fix this? It's just, it's a way of pursuit of, I don't know, that sound or passion, the things you want to hear. And it's cool. It's a neat thing. Some guys have that bug and some don't, but that's just a characteristic of a personality. But everybody's so nice, and they're good people. I mean, that's been the exciting part about this whole process, honestly.
Have you had any products that you've just had to abandon ship that just didn't do what you hoped they would have done?
Abandon ship, like, here, don't go this way. There's probably been a bunch that I've tested and failed. For sure. But ones that I've had to abandon,
Maybe not abandon then, because then what do you do? Modify? I mean,
we make changes all the time. We make changes all the time. It's why I'm in the field. Just you get the experience from your customer's perspective, and it is very compelling when you're in a meeting and you say, "This is what I want to have happen. This is why." Hanging solutions have been huge for us. That's one of our areas of expertise, because hanging our products can be very tricky. Like getting to like the Brad Mueller concept, which is so easy, and you can't hang. There's no panel that hangs faster and is less invasive than our Acoustically panels, for example. But it's so it's been like abandoning some of those methods. Things we've changed. Our panels have changed. We densified our core and got rid of our frames, for example. We had some trade-offs, but nothing that we'll miss compared to the complexity of the framing that we had to build and the trick of shipping those frames. So that was something we abandoned, the metal frame. Hanging method, everything about it changed when we did that. So that was a earth-changing moment.
What was it? More like a picture panel? You were actually hanging on a nail?
Actually, it's funny because the ones I have on my wall here are that way. So they were more wrapped, if you will, like gallery wrapped, the same way you would wrap an image if you were going to look at pictures in a gallery. And they were wrapped around a metal frame. Oh. And so those changed. We changed that out with a whole different process. And that process, as I've told you about, has led to some other really, really big opportunities because of what we're doing now and what relative benefits that has to other industries like aerospace for how we connect things together. And so that's a huge thing. And for us, it's something we do every single day, every day. So abandoned, I told you my really bad ideas that I can't share probably on your podcast. I'm going to keep it G-rated, but,
well, I think you covered. I mean, what about like, you get an idea, how long does it take for you to then make it like an actual marketable option?
Marketable option. Wow. For me, and this is the cool part, a lot of big companies have to have their ideas and such generated out of house or in a different department where they're allowed to make mistakes and they're allowed to try things without looking bad. You know what I mean? Whereas I kind of value my mistakes to show that I tried something and it didn't work. Good failures, things that are proving, that's good. We don't want to do this. We should do something different. Really important stuff. So two different things. One is, I guess, how do I get from concept to product? Happens extremely quickly. Like the next application. It's like, I want to try this here. You know, let's say, for example, it would be an offset mount for a wall fixture. Like, let's say you have say a 4 foot by 8 foot section of a design in a space, and I want to offset that and LED behind it. And I want to make it so that it's offset. I don't want to sacrifice the sound. How do I get a sound benefit out of that? Be able to offset it so I can get LED channel in there. I can also replace the LEDs if I need to. So, you know, those are all things you have to consider. Hide the wiring, blah, blah, blah. And how's that going to be done? That's a big one. How are we going to, this happened recently. It's just something I keep bumping into, and I was frustrated. I said, I need a solution for this. And I can thank several customers for helping me understand what's out there for this, because I'm not an electrician, which is bringing plugs and such off the wall so that we could, you know, you could finish the wall with a 1-inch panel on there. Yours is a little tricky because of the multi-depth. I mean, my goodness, we had to be really creative on that left side. I wouldn't do that as a marketable thing because it's tricky for folks to do what I just did for you. But certainly you saw what I did when we brought those, you know, your sockets out so that we could have a flush mounted plate against the wall. Yeah, it was nicely before I cracked it. I owe you a beer, but it's a.
I don't think that 50-cent outlet cover really matters.
But it was
hiding behind the.
Like I said, it was but it's perfecting that was a recent development to help folks keep a certain look in their space. There's a bunch, man. I fail a lot. I mean, I tried to do a thing where I could have a grouted panel to really have like something huge and seamless. Fail. Couldn't get the right material. I couldn't hide the seam, you know, like a Bosfafon who does like acoustical plaster, and you come in there and their whole thing is a literal plaster curves and all kinds of beautiful things with contiguous surfaces. It doesn't work with our stuff. So trying to focus on like buying sections of things, putting them together and be able to make it seamless. It's just hard to hide those seams, really hard, especially when you're talking about a material like ours that's made from recycled fibers that is going to have natural, you know, slight variances in things. There's going to be slight variances just because of how it is working with recycled materials. It's part of it. It's part of the nature of my beast. But anyway.
How big of a panel can you currently make?
Well, as one piece, it really comes down to what we can ship. Do you know what I mean?
Okay.
So that's, and then what can be handled on site, right? You know what I mean? We've made some really big panels. I don't know how big the largest would be. You start getting into the area of players in my market who will build things onto the wall. And those are called stretch wall systems and things like that, where your panels are actually built onto the wall and then you cover it right there we put the material in and then you cover it. And it's kind of a stretch thing between your, you know, they fit into your track, which is essentially your edging. And then there's different ways of finishing that edge based on those systems. Different animal, highly decorative, very different installation process. A little more invasive, obviously, but in some cases it works. I don't employ that. I do have some OEMs we sell to who have that system that use us on the inside as their absorption panel, but original equipment manufacturers essentially. But it's not our intent to launch that. So biggest I like to make. The biggest I think is a 4x4, me personally, because when handling it in the field, you know, 4x8s, I can do those. They're just hard to handle. Things get messed up. You know, if it's an image panel, things get kind of dirtied. Can be done. Not my favorite. Best thing I like to ship things in small packages like 2x4s, you know, where, or on a pallet, a 4x4 pallet where things just don't get messed up, you know, in freight. Someone told us our crating was so nice that they would ship their children in it.
Please take them.
Take my kids, ship them. Yeah, what's this?
Oh man, well we're coming towards the end here, and I kind of wanted to make sure we covered just some like hierarchy of what's the simplest solution, and then how far can someone potentially take it.
Simple solutions. What are you talking about with specific solutions that we have, or in general, or?
Well, let's say, start with what you have, and maybe it's just like put some furniture in your room as your solution number one.
I mean, sometimes getting some stuff in the space, right? Obviously, but simple solutions. Simple is like sound absorption sheets. Simple, easy. Sheets. They're made for absorption. They're made for what you're going to be using them for, especially for drums, because it's my first innovation and still among my favorite. Then it just gets cooler from there, but it doesn't necessarily get more effective from there.
Oh, okay.
Depending on how you install the sheets, you can hang them off the wall by putting an inch or a 2 inch gap behind it. You're going to get a much bigger bump in the low in the mids. I'd say low frequency. It's hard to absorb, but you're going to get a big bump in the NRC. You get 20 to 30% more efficacy by taking any panel and offsetting it an inch or two. So so sheets are a very inexpensive way to start. It's really just talking to somebody. I mean, I get a lot of calls from folks that obviously already have solutions, but now they want something cool. And I'm like, okay, don't throw out your old panels. Let's figure out how to reemploy them somewhere else in the space so that they're still usable to some degree. You paid for them. They got made. Yes, you poisoned our atmosphere, but hey, it's okay.
Now,
like, now it's made. Let's use it. And the worst thing would be to throw it out, right? Or give it to someone else who's just starting out, and you'll kind of just step up and then do a good thing and help somebody who would really appreciate what you've got there. Not great stuff, but when they're ready to step up, same thing happens. But this way, we're not punishing the earth for, by having to make more, this kind of thing. So hard to say. But you start there. I think the trickiest thing in the beginning is taking a phased approach with a particular product without having a full strategy, because you end up putting something in guaranteed to fail in the first portion of your project because you don't have a design at that point. A lot of times we'll propose something and they're going to go, well, gosh, I can do about half of that. It's like, maybe just wait until we get there, because otherwise you're going to end up putting in a solution that works half as it should and not going to solve the problem I want to solve for. And I don't want to hit a home run. I want to hit a home run every time, So I have an ethical thing with that, as well as just protect my own reputation. I want people to have the qualitative outcomes that they're expecting.
Yeah, get it right the first time, right?
Otherwise we're going to just add to it, and that's great for sales for now. But what I've done is a disservice to my customer in the interim. And some people go, yeah, I understand. No, you really don't until you really hear that it doesn't work like I told you it wouldn't. I want it to be right, because I know what someone's trying to do, and I'd rather have them wait. Most often, I'm not in any hurry. We're not going anywhere, but I do want your solution to be correct. And anyway, going back to your original thing, simple, starting simple is really talking to a pro. That's the best thing you can do, so that you've got,
kind of know what you're looking at.
Yeah. If you fail to plan, you plan to fail. So it's really good to have kind of a strategic plan in place. And you can swap. Like, you can finish your whole room. You can do the room in a way with certain design elements and then replace those later. You know what I mean? Or add to them later, as a way of improving, the visual. But the acoustical has to be taken care of, because typically that's what we're solving for.
Beautiful. I have no other questions other than, do you have any drums at home, and what are they?
Wow. It's a funny shit to ask. So I have a Yamaha recording kit at home. I have a ton of cymbals, in pursuit of sound kind of thing. But I have a Yamaha recording custom, the old 9000 series, I guess they're called, because that was from way back when.
When did you get them?
Don't tell my wife, because she got them from last
week.
No, that would be bad.
These are like original era, like 80s.
These are 80s, 90s. I'd say 90, 95, 94, somewhere around there.
What color?
Cherry red, same as Dave Weckl.
Of course.
So,
that's popular.
Yeah, well, of course, because that was the guy. And then I got a Rick Marietta hip gig kit as well. From Yamaha, and love that thing. And that was just because I was getting tired of dragging around the recording customs. But that was just from being a Dave Weckl fan and all during the day, and Joel Rosenblatt and those cats and Spyro Gyra and all that. And so starting out in smooth jazz, that was a great way. What a great kit too. And still sounds great. mean, I can't tune it like a pro, but man, it's easier than say some other kits that I had. I won't mention any brand names, that would be bad, but just some of the kits that I've worked with. And it's fantastic. And I started, my very first kit was a old Rogers that I'm killing myself that I sold. Oyster Pearl, ancient Oyster Pearl. And then I had, but I still have that power tone snare. I saved my original snare from 1964.
Is it wood or metal?
It's metal.
Yeah, those are great.
Dude, yeah. And it's like, I'm like, I went to a garage sale. I'm going to hear how terrible this is. I went to a garage sale and guy had a $20 price tag on a snare drum and had a hole in the head. And just as a joke, I went, "Hey dude, this thing has a hole in the head. How can you charge $20?" The guy goes, give me 15.
What?
This is 1965 chrome over brass. I think it was made in Cleveland, like Ludwig made in Cleveland. I mean, it's like, oh geez. And that became the drum I played for many, many years thereafter. And I felt guilty and funny. I mean, $20 was a steal. 15 was a joke. It was just like,
hey man, I'm sure he was happy to get his $15. Whatever.
You know what though? Let me tell you, I'm sure he was just happy that somebody played it. Someone bought it and actually played the heck out of it. And that would probably be more to him than anything else, because the reason it was being sold is because his son never played it or his daughter never played it. So
yeah, right. Otherwise it's going in the garbage, right?
Well, garage sale. But, and that's why they had a saxophone there too, and some other stuff I was looking at, but they were in pieces beyond repair. And this one looked like it was beyond repair too, but it wasn't. It was beyond, $5 later, and it's the same $650, whatever the thing is, but, there's tons of stories like that when people are picking up cool stuff, but that was just, funny. But I love my old drums. I don't have a collection like I probably could or should. I've really enjoyed vicariously the passion of other drummers and seeing what they collect, how they do their voodoo. And I think an untapped market for a podcast or for some kind of online fun thing is every drummer has a different coffee process, how they make their coffee.
Oh, their coffee.
Mine's really
boring.
cool
I just pour it out of the pot.
Well, everyone's got their thing, man. And it's like sometimes that's your thing. But I'm telling you, every drummer has a different kind of process, and what the way they do their voodoo and how they grind the beans and what flavor they're doing in it. And each one is amazing in its own way. Just incredible experience in the coffees I've experienced in working with the different artists.
Well, you've got to tell me yours then, because mine is literally brew it or make it instant. I don't care. Heat it up, put it in a cup.
Dude, mine's simple. I'm Keurig. I'm just Keurig guy because I don't have the time. It's time. I mean, I'm up at 5:30 every day. I'm working out 4 days a week in the gym by 7:00. It's I don't have time to do any kind of ritual. But a lot of guys do have it, and it's cool. It's really cool.
Yeah, I just gotta get hip to it. I'm impatient. Maybe we're similar in that way. I'm impatient. I want to get rolling. I don't want to think about how to do something.
And my thing is I'm like, and it's so tempting because I've had I could buy all the pieces parts that everybody's got, and they're nice, and it's like, man, it is great coffee. I'm thinking like, sometimes you make a change, and then anyways, it could be with drums and things like this, and then you get used to it after a while. You know what I mean? And then you're almost like craving another change, to shake things up again.
Keep stepping up to more random versions of whatever it is.
Yeah, or flavor and grinding. Yes, and I'm like, I've had that too. But man, it's a ritual, and it's I think it's the deeper the ritual, the better the coffee.
Okay.
It's been some really trippy stuff. I mean, ranging from the highest end of espresso makers to just the cool, pour over type methodologies. And then of course the brands of the coffee. But anyway, that's like content waiting to happen for somebody to
all right, tell me who gave you the best cup of coffee so I can seek them out.
All right. Well, it's going to be, wow. This is, this is really hard. Boy, that's really hard to say. Cause there's different types of coffee. You know what I mean? I'll put up the most memorable ones. Carter's got a good solid coffee. He exposed me to his kicking horse or kicking ass or kick ass coffee, whatever he's doing, which is really great. And I still drink that to this day. It's just great coffee. Nothing to do with the dude, but a great introduction. Sammy Marandino with the real deal of Italian espresso makers. And with the grinder and the whole bit, it's top of the line. And dude, that's probably the top there. And then the brand again, I think him coming from Carter, Justin Scott, coffee snob. It's got to be. I mean, it's a process, dude, and it rocks. And there's heating at temperature, just like a good brew for a beer. That's a good one. Memorable. George Slepik. Do you know George?
Okay.
Do you know George? Okay. He's got a cool ritual. That was a surprisingly cool. Like he's like, wait till you hit this, and he did the special grinder, and I was like, whoa. And it's a combination of things. It's like, how you can't take a drummer's sound and say, well, hey, the drums are going to play themselves. You know what I mean? It's a combination of things, but memorable cups, those are probably some of the big ones that are out there.
All right, then. All right. So well, Sammy was supposed to be on the show months ago, and we have yet to make it happen. So
got to give him a call, ask him about his coffee. You know what's funny? His brother has the same setup. Dude, he's in Cleveland, so that's competition between the both. I'll tell you also was cool, just as an honorable mention. I told him I keep this quiet, but because I haven't experienced the other half of this wager. But Aaron Vishria, who is a rep for D'Addario,
ProMark, Evans, yep,
and Evans. So Aaron makes an incredible chai. An incredible chai tea. I mean, like, holy cow. And the upma was amazing too, his wife made, which is like a Indian oatmeal kind of thing going on. Unbelievable, filling, satisfying kind of thing with dal. I'll be starting making that, and I'm hoping he'll give up his chai recipe, but he competes with Kaz Rodriguez. And there's a big chai competition going on there. So I'm just waiting to meet Kaz finally in person, because we've been working in a studio for a year, and now he's here in the United States. But it's like, man, I just waiting to throw that out. It's like, taste his chai, because I'm sure we'll get together. He's gonna make chai and I'll be like, it's almost as good as Aaron's. I'm just gonna throw that out. He'll probably never see that. I hope he doesn't see this. But anyway.
Well, what I'm learning is I had an epic fail. I didn't give you a cup of coffee.
No, dude. Oh, but you know what you did do? And I said, hey man, I need something local. And I didn't realize this till I left you. So I met with my nephew after hanging out, and it turns out that, my nephew, and what you gave me, it's called with the French fries, the salad with the French fries on it and all that kind of stuff. That's a Pittsburgh salad, dude. We had this thing, but I didn't know that was like actually like a thing. Dude,
yeah, I mean, I'm sure
salad.
your arteries didn't love it, but yeah, there's French fries on everything here.
Dude, but that's called there's like a name for that. You can order a Pittsburgh salad, and they do it with different things, and it's got the French fries and the cheese and all this kind of stuff. And I don't know how your neighbors will go at the do they actually eat the lettuce or they leave it there? I don't know how that works, but man, it was like, I get it. And I was like, I didn't realize that was actually the local thing. I said, we did salads. It was cool. And the gyro was really good too. But it's like
yeah, that's anyway. That's what they fed these steel mill workers. Everything all in the salads. You get everything you need in one swoop.
Why not? I mean, why? But Chicago Red Hots, they're putting everything on hot dogs over there. Yeah. That was a combination of how we get things into our bodies, but man, you can always make healthier choices. One of which is to stop listening to me.
I owe you a nice cup of coffee next time then.
Oh, dude, no.
All right, it's time for a new segment of the Drum Candy Podcast, where I'm visiting with Chris Hawthorne over at Hawthorne Drum Shop here in Pittsburgh, and we are going to dig through some of his inventory and some of his personal collection, where we kind of explain some of the details that go into this whole crazy world of collecting and buying and selling and vintage and used drums and all of that. So this week we have a cool Ludwig Standard kit that we check out. So we're going to talk about what is the Ludwig Standard kit. All right, so let's dig into all things Ludwig Standard. How does it compare to I don't even know what the Pro line is called.
I guess you'd call them like Classics. Yeah.
So what's the main similarities and differences?
So these are 3-ply shells, the same as if you want to call them the Classics. So like the downbeat configuration, the super classic configuration, they're all 3-ply, typically poplar maple shells with reinforcement rings. After this, they came out with the Ludwig rockers, and for a while those were like a 4-ply maple, and then they came out with like the cheaper ones. But they did these standard shells or these standard drums to kind of be more of a middle line, affordable, drum kit as opposed to paying like more for a classic maple kit. Differences are lugs, so they don't kind of have like the cooler Art Deco style lugs on them.
Right.
Diamond plate's a little bit different. Obviously, different badges as opposed to the blue olive. Yeah.
You know when they were introduced?
In the late 60s. I want to say maybe 68.
Okay. So is there a different badge on the 60s standards?
No.
It has the... This looks so 70s.
I know. I've had a few kits that were stamped to the 60s. Now those shells might have been, so these were B stock shells, and a lot of people don't know about that, is that they're in fact B stock. So the shells might have been sitting around for a couple of years, and then they developed the line, and they still had the stamp when they were made. So that might be why. I don't know if those drums actually left the factory in the 60s or not.
Oh, I see what you're saying. The raw shell was made in the 60s, but you don't necessarily know when it was put together.
Yeah. I could also, I don't know the catalog offhand.
Yep.
And I could just be making that up. So truth be told,
Fair enough.
when I don't know an answer to something, I'll be like, oh yeah, maybe we're just sitting around the factory.
So wait a minute. Okay. Fair enough. So you've got the pro level, which was probably just Ludwig's, right? And then they decided we need to come out with something. All these kids want drums. We need to come out with something that's a little bit more affordable. But then did the rocker replace the standard, or?
I wouldn't say replace it because they're different shells. And I think that was more late 70s.
That was when they were transitioning to.
Yeah. They had like
anyway.
a rocker too. And I kind of avoid rockers, but they're the black and white badges. And they're actually pretty good drums. Some of them have the classic lugs on it. But that, I think, kind of became their midline drum after these. These are way better drums, if you ask me.
Yeah. Same shells, right? So, okay, let's dig in further. What should you look for when shopping? First of all, would you recommend anyone get a standard if they want a Ludwig kit?
I love them.
Yeah.
Maybe this is just like my brain tricking me, but I swear every single standard kit I've had has sound better than a classic kit. I don't know if it's because the hardware is kind of like lower profile or what, but they sing more, if you will. They resonate. They sound a little fatter, which is weird because, like I said, they're B stock shells. So they basically repurpose the shells to make the standard line. Plus, I'm a big fan of kind of like the psychedelic style wraps.
Yeah, this is.
I love
really
the Stratas.
Cool.
Lemon Strata's my favorite. I have some up there. I'll show you later.
Okay. What was the most common?
Blue. They did a lot of blue.
Like just a metallic blue? What was it?
Yeah, it's kind of like it's a pearl cut kind of type blue.
Okay.
But it would fade sometimes to green. Bronze strata, red strata, ruby strata is pretty common. And then there's avocado strata, which is one of the more rare ones, and then lemon strata. They also did astro finishes. So it's like, I'm trying to explain it. Very like hippie. The satin flame finishes from Gretsch? Kind of like that, but like there's a little kind of like S style. I'll see if I have any wrap I can show you.
Is it textured? Like this is like
a
smooth...
textured. Yeah, absolutely. So it would crack and split. They did gold. They did white. They did like a blue. Another one I can't remember, but definitely like the psychedelic, because that's what was popular.
This looks way hipper to me. So let's say someone comes in, because I imagine the prices on these are now kind of creeping up to where the regular Ludwigs are. Would you steer someone towards this versus the regular one? What would be the determining factors?
That's a good question. I would probably ask them like how much you care about a finish. Because some people don't like the strata finishes, like a sparkle, or also want to like consider money as well. These are a few $100s less than a classic kit. They used to be way cheaper, but I think that they're becoming more popular now that more people are playing them.
Yeah.
So this kit in particular is a single owner kit. So the gentleman I bought it from, I think he was 84. And he got these new, he couldn't remember the store name, but he got it in Pittsburgh. I want to guess it was Arts Drum Shop, which is downtown. 13, 22, 16, and there's a matching snare back there.
Is that rare to have a matching snare?
Sometimes.
Grab it.
Some people will kind of get angry if we sell a snare separate, but not everybody wants to have a matching snare. It's not like a thing anymore. Some people prefer it, some people don't. So we have this up separately. There are serial. I was going to say that the serial numbers don't mean as much on the standard badges as they do in the Blue Olive and the Keystone, but pretty well kept. We didn't really have to detail it. It's funny. He had which is common back in the day. You could add extra hardware. He put a muffler on there, which was completely unfunctional when we demoed it. It was rattling, so we took it off. But if you want to buy the kit, we would be happy to include this internal muffler with you.
Is that an original Ludwig?
No. Nope.
So he had it added later.
Yeah, this is Slingerland. But it wasn't drilled close enough to the edge, so it kind of just sits there. I was wondering why he had it all taped up. But
rattle.
Yeah, which is another thing too. These also have the tone controls, the mufflers.
Yep.
They have kind of an acrylite style. You see these a lot on these 60s acrylites, late 60s ones.
Yep.
They kind of changed their knob style a couple of times. But
what's your thought on these? Do you love them or hate them?
I do not like them.
Okay.
Because when we were kind of getting ready to demo this, they just rattle a lot. And if you like internal muffling, it's great. It's easy. You don't have to put anything on your heads. They function pretty well, but I don't really ever use muffling very often. So to me, it's just something just another noise to make.
Does that take any value away if you would remove them?
Yeah, it's, people, I think it's more of sometimes it's a cosmetic thing because they see, there's two holes there. You're going to have a hole for the tone, the actual knob, and you're going to have so it would. I mean, it's just kind of cool. Like when we price this, we'll consider that it's a one owner kit that we didn't have to do a lot to it, other than, I guess you can consider the muffler being a mod, even though it was put on there by the original owner. The fact that it has all the tone controls and most of the tension rods are original, so consider like originality in there. It would add some value to it.
So what is the things to look out for that might not be up to par on this particular series?
So if you're going to buy one and you care about the condition, because it has kind of if you want to say a horizontal pattern to the wrap, sometimes the oyster finishes like Blue Oyster and Black, there'll be a crack that goes with the actual pattern. Oh. And sometimes you can't, if you're going to somebody's garage at night and you can't see it, sometimes you'll get home and be like, oh, there's a bunch of cracks in this. Mm-hmm. They'll also crack in the lug because it's a thinner wrap. So it's not, the blue cracks a lot, way more than any other finish, which is really weird. But cracking in the wrap, honestly, there's not a lot that can go wrong with these.
Spurs seem to be pretty basic.
Yeah, it's a club date style. It's the same ones they put on a club date. It's a telescoping spur. I like the gull wing spurs better, which is what they used on the 60s Ludwigs. Mm-hmm. And then they went to the curved spurs in the 70s. They're fine. They're not my favorite. But really, the biggest thing I'd consider is for this particular series is to just watch the wrap, make sure it's not cracking off. Take off the heads. Sometimes if somebody over tightens the heads or jams a small head on there, it'll kind of mess up the wrap. And it'll kind of hide under the hoops.
It doesn't affect the sound really, right?
No.
It's just cosmetic.
We actually we bought a kit that was blue. It was blue, and we didn't really see the pictures very well, and they were all I think I tried to glue a couple of seams down, and it was just not. So we just ripped the wrap off, and we sent out the kit to have it rewrapped in green sparkle. Oh, cool. And it came. So sometimes these will come with classic lugs too.
I've never seen that.
We've had a few that came, and again, maybe they just ran out of the lugs.
Right.
At the factory, because they take the same hole spacing, which is another thing too. So if you get one of these kits for a good deal and you don't like the lugs, these will take the classic style lugs.
You can turn it into a classic kit.
There you can.
What's that other snare you got over there?
Oh, so I brought this. This is another. So the standard series just wasn't wood shells. Oh, also this is basically a jazz festival. It's an 8-lug, 5x14, 3-ply. So some people call this a poor man's jazz festival, but it's not nearly as much.
Yeah, that price tag is nice.
Yeah, so if you want the jazz festival sound, get one of these. And I want to guess that the lugs fit, but don't hold me to that because I don't want any angry emails. So they also made this. This is a standard aluminum. It's basically an acrylate. 1, 2, 3, 4, 8 lugs. It's got the the standard kind of style lugs, standard badge. Spun seamless shell. So the same kind of shell that you would use for an acrylate. It's got the kind of the flange on the inside. Yeah. I feel like these are thinner than acrylates. I don't know if I don't know.
It's a seamless shell. It's not a rolled shell.
Yeah. And they sound awesome. Really dry. Kind of my favorite. If I had to choose between an acrylate or a super or this, I would probably take this.
No kidding.
Yeah, I don't know. I really like them for some reason. But again, these are about the same price as like a 70s acrylate. But
Now, do you ever have any issues with the lug casing snapping or is there anything that like faulty? Are these just cheaper? I don't understand why they use these. What's the
they were
savings?
probably cheaper to make because there's no. If you look at a classic lug, there's like 3 or 4 lines. Right. It's more complex. Probably costs more to make. These are probably cheaper. Same thing with cymbal mount here. It's kind of just more of like a bulbous, rounded type thing. The diamond plate I actually like better than the diamond plate on a classic kit.
Yeah, no, I think
it's more low profile, and it also another thing too is this center post is not the same as a classic kit.
Much thinner, right?
Right. So if you were to buy this and try to use like a classic tom tree, it's not going to work. Mm-hmm. I wish I had. So they made another kit. It's called an S330, I think. You've probably seen somebody. Aaron Sterling has one. It's green and they're concert toms. So they were made to be a nesting kit. It's a 22, like usually a 10, 12, 13, and then a 16. And they're all like,
yep.
Those are like really popular.
Joey Warnker talked about that in his episode. That's that being like his favorite kit right now.
Yeah. And those are standard. It's very, I wonder why they decided to do that. I know Slingerland did the Avante kit, which was the 3 up top too, but they're 2-sided. I wonder if they like had a bad run of shells and they just like cut off maybe, I don't know. That's a total guess, but those are also standard badge drums, but they're really good. I love, these drums sound so fat and they're really easy to tune. And some people will buy, like they'll call or whatever, and they're like, I don't have a vintage kit yet. I want to get a Ludwig. This is a great kit because they're a little easier to tune. They're not as finicky, and they sound like Ludwig.
Yeah.
So
I can't hear a difference. Blindfolded, I wouldn't know the difference.
Blindfolded.
Right?
That should be a thing where we just bring people and blindfold them.
Can you tell what this is?
I would feel that every single time.
When I played them a few minutes ago, it was like, yes, these are Ludwigs. Just fat. Give it all back to someone's knocking at your door. That might be time to wrap it up.
Well, yeah, this is a kit, and I like it.
Ludwig standard.
Great way to end it.
That is it for this week's episode. Hope you enjoyed my chat with Mitch from Audimute. Again, reach out to him directly if you have any questions about how to treat your room. I can attest that the difference is absolutely drastic. I am able to practice a lot more often and get better results in the space. And also, if you dig the segments we got with Chris Hawthorne, we're going to do some more of these. Hope you enjoyed that. I'll be a little bit more organized with my questioning next time, but it's a lot of fun just to take a look at these different kits and things. So that'll be another ongoing series. And if you do enjoy the show, please head over to iTunes, wherever you get your podcast. Give us a 5-star rating. Please write a review. That does help get this podcast to rank higher for other drummers to find it. And until next week, go practice. See you then.